To judge or not to judge? That's the question that I find people having a debate about the most. This is because we were conditioned in religion, specifically in the Christian sphere, to believe that judging others or judging in general was something that we shouldn't partake in, and that, yeah. For the most part, it just came from one verse and one interpretation of one verse from a very shallow level, missing the bigger picture and also missing the rest of the Bible, right? So typically, the stance on if it's okay to judge or not comes from the verse where Yeshua is confronted by religious leaders of his time, and he says, "Judge not, lest you be judged." Pretty much saying you're going to get what you give. So in your case, it's best for you not to judge at all. That is, in fact, Matthew 7, 1 through 3. Now, this is an area that is somewhat conflicted people because you see him say very clearly, judge not, yet it doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't make sense, especially when you read the rest of the Bible. Because if you simply go over to 1 Corinthians 2:15, it says that a spiritual man judges all things, but he himself is not judged. So hold up, we have a conflict here, or so it seems. We have one verse clearly saying judge not, and another verse saying spiritual people actually judge all things. So which is it? Which is it? Is this a conflict? No. This is where reading comprehension and critical thinking comes into play. What's going on here? This is when actually paying attention to the text instead of looking for a doctrine to give people comes into effect. I like to break these type of things down into a series of questions. One, who was Yeshua talking to when he said judge not? Religious people. Okay. What were those religious people doing? They were using the law as a means to abuse other people. Okay. So in no way was Yeshua trying to validate what they were trying to do with a spiritual facade. You have to understand that religious people are not necessarily spiritual people. Well, who is allowed to judge? Well, Bible also says a spiritual man judges all things, which means spiritual people are allowed to judge. Religious people, not so much. Why is this? You have to understand the true nature of humanity. See, there's a simple truth that you are God. That doesn't change. Every person on the planet is God, whether in ignorance or in some level of knowledge of it, but God nonetheless. The word God, especially in Hebrew, means the same thing as judge. Elohim means gods, and it means judges. Yeshua said, don't you know that ye are gods? He was reminding them of their true nature, which is divine, which is holy, which is God. Which means in their truest nature, they're judges. So this is the distance. This is the difference. A spiritual person is someone who's on a path, or at the very least has some level of access to their true self. It's someone who's practicing allowing their true self to live through them, seeing from a heavenly perspective, functioning from higher realms. It speaks to an advanced level of clarity and wisdom, understanding and counsel that enables one to be a lot more helpful in matters that involve judgment. It's to see from the same position as God. Not only are you seated in heavenly places, but when you are seated in heavenly places and you see from heavenly places, you have a heavenly perspective that you then get to give to the world around you. And simply put, to compare the two verses, I don't see them as a contradiction. I see them as a standard. If you're going to judge based on your religion, don't do it. The best thing you can do is get out of people's way and leave people alone. But if you're coming from heaven, if you're coming from your holy of holies, If you're coming from the position of being seated in the heavens, looking down below, if you're functioning from your Godness, your God state, your divine identity, your holiest self, your spirit, if your spirit is speaking, that's valid. If your spirit is what's leading, that's valid. That judges all things because it has the capability to see all things, to have the wisdom of all things. Wisdom is what enables a person in order to be able to judge. It's about clarity. Wisdom and clarity are the same thing. It's the ability to see the ins and outs of an entire situation. It's not about being in a faction war. And that's where religion falls short. A religious person is someone who has decided that they've chosen a system over authentic spirituality. It's a religious person is one who says to themselves, I'm holy because my faction is holy. I'm holy, I'm righteous, I'm spiritual because my system is spiritual, even if it isn't. So their spirituality is fake. It's the facade of a thing. It's the presentation of a thing without the authenticity of that very thing. And it's to that extent, religious people are not given permission to judge by Yeshua himself. This isn't for everyone. You have to pay attention. He told them not to judge. Them not to judge. He spoke to the rest of the world and said, go for it. Given limitations, because his main thing was calling people back to their true identity. If your true identity speaks, it's valid. If you live from your true identity, it's valid. It's not about having done something wrong in the past or even having a flaw now. That's not the basis of judgment. It's, oh, I can't judge nobody else because I might have done that before. Or I might do so. I know I mess up. Yeah. That's fine. But that's not what Yeshua was talking about. That's not God's standard. Again, that's man's standard. Something you have to come to terms with is that religious people are the world too. We have this idea of religious versus secular. Religion is secular. It's not spiritual. It's secularism using the mascot of spirituality, using the presentation of spirituality, but it's nothing different in itself. And that's for any religion. They're the same in that they're more so a byproduct of the ego. When the ego is in control, you'll find yourself in a religion. Any of them. But because it's all about self-validation through external means rather than internal realization. That's another topic. That's it. That's all I have for y'all for this session. Links in the descriptions down below. Join us on Patreon, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere else. Cave of M, Cave of Mystery. Y'all be blessed. Later.